Now going to turn to another topic, and that has to deal with death certificates here in the state of Michigan. There's legislation that didn't pass last year and now is once again moving forward this year, kind of modifying the death certification process. If you're not familiar with what that looks like, or maybe you are and you've been frustrated by it, I sat down this afternoon via Zoom to speak with State Representative Julie Rogers just about what this legislation looks like and what it hopes to accomplish, and also where it stands right now. Take a listen.
When you hear death certificate, what's that used for? For someone who's not familiar, what are you using that documentation for?
Sure. So by Michigan law, under current statute, anytime someone passes away, you must have a signed death certificate, and depending on the circumstances, it must be signed by either a physician, a medical physician, or a county medical examiner. And what we've been finding over the last few years is my office has received complaints from residents in my district. It's not specific to Kalamazoo. This is a widespread thing throughout the state where there are significant delays in receiving these death certificates. And sometimes physicians are faxing them into the funeral home, and then the funeral director must transcribe them into an already existing web-based system called electronic registry, ERDS. So that system already exists through the Department of Health and Human Services. It's a secure web-based system, but it also, can be faxed or snail mailed. And so as you can imagine, there's significant delays with that. If anyone watching has lost a loved one recently, you know that you cannot proceed. You cannot bury someone. You cannot cremate them. You cannot, access insurance funds, any kind of legal matters. Everything requires that death certificate. And so the whole process in the mourning and grieving is all held up based on that signature. And so basically the legislation seeks to modernize the process. This is a reintroduction. These bills are identical to bills that Representative Mueller and I introduced last year. They passed with wide bipartisan support, over 100 votes, and they really basically died in the Senate during lame duck.
At this point, obviously, reintroducing them, how are you hoping? I mean, I know how you're hoping this pans out, but what's kind of going to happen moving forward to, hopefully make this into a reality?
Sure. Well, this was on my priority list at the beginning of the year because we, have divided government up here, and so it's a bipartisan bill package. Myself and Rep. Mueller, he's a Republican, I'm a Democrat, and because we received so much widespread support last term, we thought, why not try it again? And it should be able to get across the finish line. We did just have a vote on it from the full House chamber this past week, and picked up actually another vote, so it passed 106-2 with 2 members absent. So in a time where there can be quite a bit of chaos in politics and government, I think the fact that over 100 of us agreed on this policy says something, and I look forward to working with our Senate counterparts as well.
And so I know obviously modifications made to how the process works currently. Can you walk me through what those changes are exactly that, would make this easier for families?
Yes. So right now, as I said, there's a number of different types of options that physicians can accomplish this task of signing and submitting it to, for example, a funeral home. This requires that they enter into the electronic web-based system. So it will streamline and make it instantaneous. From the second they put that in, it will be uploaded and the funeral director can access that secure portal. Right now, it's sometimes up to 7 days delays we're hearing. And when it's matters that you're waiting to try to plan a funeral, every day counts for these families that are grieving. So this requires the signature, electronic signature within 48 hours of the death. If it's natural causes. If there's other factors, then of course it's the normal process through the county medical examiner's office. And Rep. Mueller's bill touches on a few pieces of that.
Gotcha. So this would make it so that the electronic process is really the only option. The snail mail and the fax options would go away.
Correct.
Gotcha. And from personal experience that you've heard from, people in your community, making this more streamlined, making it simpler, how beneficial would this just be on an emotional level and just an ease of mind kind of an issue to have one less thing to worry about for people?
Well, as you can imagine, most of us have experienced loss of a loved one at some point in our lives, and that is already a stressful, often sad time for families. And so trying to wait on paperwork is the last thing that you want to do when you're grieving that loss of a loved one. And so this is just giving peace of mind. It's one more check off in the process and can really allow people to move forward with processing the death of their loved one, however they and their family tradition chooses to. But again, all of these different pieces result in delays. And so as you're planning, if you have out of town family, the sooner you can figure out all these details for end of life arrangements, the more, peaceful. And so I just hope that this can give people another layer of peace of mind as it can be streamlined and cut government red tape.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, we're at this point, this kind of second coming of this legislation. Walk me through kind of just next steps in, making this, getting this to the governor's desk.
Yes, the next steps will be over to the Senate. It will need to go through the committee process over in the Senate, pass out of the committee onto the Senate floor, and then onto the governor's desk.
Gotcha. And any idea, I know things are always changing, but timeline wise, how quickly we could see that happen?
I will be having conversations with my Senate counterparts very soon.